Hi, everybody. My name is J.M. Rowe. I'm N5XFW. I'm an extra class operator. I happen to be the section emergency coordinator for the state of Arkansas, and I'm responsible for outside the box or unusual tactical communications for the Arkansas Division of Emergency Management. As a part of that, it has come to our attention that some of you guys, all of you guys probably have heard about this. We're going to have an eclipse that runs across I'm not sure how, is it 27 states? I forget for sure, but it is going to go from across Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, on up and goes into the ocean from at Halifax. So it's a long track thing. It's going to be one of the widest view events that we've ever had. It's going to be one of the largest, I think, ham radio events or potential for a ham radio event that we've ever seen. And it's going to be EmComm related for that. And so I've got some things that I wanted to visit with you guys about tonight and maybe float an idea or two. One, we're concerned that here in the state, the projection is that we will more than double the population of the state of Arkansas. And of course, as Dan can testify, that's all well and good. They start showing up 10 days ahead of time, and that's all good. But just like roaches in a room, when you turn the light back on, everybody wants to leave at one time. And so that means that the roads are clogged. And if I remember correctly, it took about 3 days for them to clear the highways in Wyoming when they had that eclipse then. And if I say earthquake instead of eclipse, please forgive me, because that is on our mind as well. So one of the things that we're working to do is foster a little bit of communications, but in the OXCOM and the section emergency coordinator worlds, with the idea that one of the things that we need to do is arrange for ham radio operators to be good hosts, and also to people coming, and also make themselves available to the authorities having jurisdiction for situational awareness. I mean, it's not like we're going to warn them that here it comes. You know, everybody knows just exactly when it's going to get dark in their neighborhood. If they don't, all they got to do is just look outside. So it's not a Skywarn event, but what we are going to be able to do is, because we're dispersed out of the communities, is be able to help our authorities head off some problems and maybe even save some property, some lives. Who knows? I'm working with OXCOM, ham radio, GMRS, and shares as well here in Arkansas. And I think all those are equally important, and they've all got different roles, and we're involved in tasking each one of those groups with different items. And I don't know what they're going to be yet, but we just know they're all going to be different because they're got different capabilities. So there's that. Now, having said that, one of the things that I'm, as a part of that, I have been asked to coordinate ham radio efforts in Texas, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. Where these three states are going partners with the federal government to manage the response to the eclipse here in our three states. And so what popped up immediately is deconfliction of frequencies, and what we're going to do about Texas talking to Oklahoma, Texas talking to Arkansas, Oklahoma talking to Arkansas, and back and forth, finding things, especially if there's bad actors that might be working actively to do something with public safety communications. We'd want to know about it. We also expect the internet to fail altogether, unless it's the military stuff. And the reason for that is everybody has got a cell phone and everybody has got a YouTube account, or not a YouTube, but a Facebook account. Everybody is going to be doing their very best to do a FaceTime live thing and stream it to the internet, and that's just not going to exist. So we are planning for all communications to be there that involves internet to fail during that period of time. Now, I can't tell you, there's no prediction on how long that failure is going to last. But it's my considered opinion that we don't want to be bothered. So let's just move our stuff off if at all possible in the first place. Our state radio system does not touch the internet at all, or the public internet. We're on the wholly owned. If it's wires, it belongs to the state of Arkansas. If it's microwave, it belongs to the state of Arkansas. And so we're not affected there too much unless there's a bad actor. Some of the other agencies, local agencies specifically, may not be so lucky as to that. And we will be working with them to, of course, they can use the state system as a backup. And I am in the group that's coordinating those things and deconflicting those requests as well. I mean, for everybody wants to have a sow and a cow, and we just ain't got enough of them to go around. So we're going to be very careful on how we send them out. May not send a lot, as a matter of fact. Everybody's going to want what we call a MAC channel. It's a multi-agency coordination channel, and we're not going to give those out unless there's some kind of something happens beside the earthquake. We've got right at 48 interoperability channels available, talk groups channels in that system, and I think that we can manage to work whatever it is. I'm a COML, so one of my responsibilities will be to help the our group write the 205, which is the communications plan for the state. We're also giving examples to the locals. We're not writing their 205s for them, but we'll help them. And of course, I'll be writing a 205 for the amateur radio operators and OXCOM and chairs and GMRS guys as well. So that brings us to this. I'd really like to have a nationwide Zoom meeting once a month, right here, same bat time, same bat channel. And I think what we could do is have a round table. We can do, we can talk about what's working in your area and what's not working. I'd like to keep the focus on EmComm, of course. OXCOM would be welcome. And we would do that on the third Tuesday. And Dan and the RATPAC have, especially Dan, has been more than supportive of this idea. As a matter of fact, we made that decision today about noon my time for me to be here tonight. So I'd like to thank Dan for being so generous with his time and assets here. So what I'd really like for you guys to do is to publicize this for me. Dan's got a slide that he can put up to make sure you guys all know about being on the you're getting an email from the RATPAC. I want to make sure that you guys can send those out. We want people to get signed up for themselves so that you don't have to forward them an email every time. It's important, I think, that we're all as involved as we want to be. I don't think that all of us here tonight probably do care about EmComm, but the great number of ham radio operators couldn't care less. And that's, as we were talking just before the meeting, that's evident that some organizations are not as forward thinking as others as far as how the world is today, kind of thing, living in the 50s kind of deal. So I am interested in moving amateur radio as a resource for authorities having jurisdiction forward. I believe in it thoroughly. I'm a member of SAFECOM. And so that means I get to hobnob with the statewide interoperability coordinators and the other members of SAFECOM out in Pasadena in a couple of weeks. And this is one of the things that I'm going to be sliding under their door is that the idea that ham radio is an asset. Ham radio is a viable tool. They have forgotten about it, and it's time to remember what's going on because, as we have seen, bad actors and stuff breaking happens. So there you go, Dan. That's about all I've got, really. If don't know if you got that slide you want to put up, or is there anything that I forgot to say? Okay. Well,
but I might comment at this point. Barry, tell us about the groups IO for emergency communications.
We have 1,500 or 1,600 members of the groups IO. So if you want to post anything on there, it'll go to a lot of people, and a lot of the people there are very active in emergency communications. So if you're not already a member, please go ahead and join the group and get on the mailing list. We do a lot of good things on there, a lot of good discussions about all kinds of interesting topics.
well, that's exactly right, Barry. I'm really interested in the people here publicizing this out. I'm going to be doing my very best to get the people that are in around the Gulf of Mexico and the eastern coast to be more involved with us than I think that they are right now. One of our the hurricanes are serious in the Gulf, so there's a great big Oxcom in Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Michigan. By the way, I think my friend that lives in Michigan, I think I saw him join a while ago. Hello, Tim. One of the big deals is that we can become a little organized on and I'm not suggesting we're going to have a national association of EmComm operators or anything like that. While I'd like for each of you to send me a $10 bill and your name and address on you, and I'd, say a prayer over it and what have you, and then go to the Bahamas, I'm not going to do that. So I think one of the things that we want to do is just take this on as a little bit of a chore, and this is a way that we can make what we do a little better. And that's my story, and I think I'm gonna stick to it. Back to you, Dave.
One of the things that we're suffering, I guess you'd call it suffering, from down here in Florida is most of you have heard last week that the Fort Lauderdale area had 24 inches of rain in 16 hours, and they've had massive flooding down there. And it's not a communications emergency as such, but next to the Fort Lauderdale airport was something called the gasoline terminal, where all of the gasoline tankers would drop off their gasoline and fill up the 18-wheelers that carry gasoline to gas stations to fill the gas stations up. Well, A, most of the gas stations were flooded. B, I guess there were 14 spigots where they can fill up the big gas tankers to fill up the gas trucks to go to fill up the gas stations. All of those were flooded, so they couldn't get gasoline to the gas stations. So as a result, a lot of the gas stations here are now without gas. They've managed to get 2/3 of the terminals working to fill up the gasoline tankers, but now there's a shortage of gasoline tankers. And they've had the state police escorting these gasoline tankers to the different gas stations. As a result, only 3/4 of our gas stations now have gasoline. 1/4 of our gas stations are dry. You're going to see this if we have this eclipse and you have double the population in Arkansas. I just want to be sure. And we've been thinking about putting up a net to help gas buddy people to spot the gas stations that are open so people can refill their automobiles. You're going to have this same problem if we have an eclipse. If you have this great many people in a small rural area and there's 2 gas stations, they're going to have trouble getting the gas tankers. There are gas stations filled up with gasoline once they run out because there's so many cars on the road. There's going to be such traffic. You're going to have to think about that. So, that's another thing you should be considering for other people who can get in, have an ability to get out, because if there's no gas, they ain't going anywhere anytime soon.
And that's exactly what we're talking about. One of the things that we have been warned, we've got a bunch of little little airports here in Arkansas, for instance, the Mount Ida Airport is just it's a little short of 5,000 feet long, but we expect there to be some jets landing there. They tell us that we can expect guests from Japan and Asia and what have you, because that's going to be the center and one of the longest parts. The eclipse will be longer there than almost anywhere else. And so that we expect that place to be covered up. Those guys aren't going to leave. Here's another thing that's just interesting. It doesn't make any difference one way or the other. As you guys know, quartz crystals used to be very important in manufacturers of radios. And back in the good old days when they had to dig those things out of the ground, they dug them, a lot of them, from here in Arkansas in Garland and Montgomery County, which is where I live. And the woods out there still have active mines in them. You can go dig your own crystals out there should you want to. And so you guys may be familiar that there's a lot of people that just think crystals or quartz specifically is just the thing that you need to be around. And they kind of sort of believe they've got some kind of power. I don't know exactly what, but in any case, by the time those guys get here and the eclipse people show up, I do believe the Washita National Forest is going to have more people in it than it does trees.
Okay, we got some hands up here. Are you ready for some comments here?
Absolutely. I got my pencil ready too.
All righty. Well, we're recording this when we're sure to get it out there. John, K7BSV, you want to take her away?
Well, thank you very much. I have lived in the Southeast, so I'm well aware of the challenges you run into with hurricanes and tornadoes and whatever. Was out here in the kind of a blue sky state. When people start talking about some of these things, we kind of roll our eyes and go, "Huh, what's that?" But I am very well aware of hurricanes, tornadoes, and so forth in the Southeast and the Midwest. So those are some issues that we might want to consider, that there are folks that live in areas that don't normally get those sorts of challenges that might go, "Oh, wait a minute, what is this?" And I'm not sure I care, but we really should. Over.
Yeah, and I agree with that. One of the things that I should have mentioned is that while the eclipse is what has precipitated me thinking about this, I intend on this being a everybody has EmComm needs at some point somewhere. Want to use our collective wisdom in order to help not only you but help me as well. I mean, you probably know something that there's no doubt you know something that I don't, and I'd like to benefit from your wisdom. One of the things that people don't think about is that Arkansas serves as a resource for Texas and Louisiana and Mississippi during those hurricanes, because their guys are in trouble. Their net control operators are affected by the storm. I almost said screwed, and I'm not supposed to say that. My wife made me promise. So one of the things is that we are our brother's keeper in that case, and that's one of the reasons we run 2 different WinLink RMSs here in Arkansas, and Puerto Rico uses us all the time. What else you got, Dan?
Well, I like to make a couple of comments here and suggestions, and that is, we have a perfect opportunity to start pulling this whole thing together, connect the dots. In the chat, you'll see where Barry put the link there for our EmComm Groups IO. We've already got 1,500 people out there, all of them of various levels of EmComm, and you name it. Let's get that thing active so we can start sharing. We have disaster going on. Florida's got one after another. Let's get some reporting going out there so we can share some of what's going on with each other, what your solutions have been, if any, and so forth. We can use that on a day-to-day business. And of course, we can have our group discussions and so forth on the Thursdays that we do this. With that, I'm going to move it over to Emmett. Everett, over to Hawaii. Go ahead.
Yes, Dan, thank you. Just wanted to bring up, and I'm not sure if anyone's aware, FEMA just released the what's called the information and
ICT.
communications technology functional guidance. It has in there about auxiliary communications, although it doesn't specifically name emergency communications, but it kind of goes in the direction of recognizing ham operators. But of course, everything else that goes under auxiliary communications. I'm just not sure if anyone's aware of that. I do have the guidance itself saved, so if anyone wants it, I can send it, or if you guys want to post it somewhere.
Yeah, post it in, put that information in chat so we can get to that.
Yeah, that was good. A good document. I'm proud to say that I've been working on that. Changing FEMA's mind on anything is not easy. And who had been the believe it or not, who'd been the holdout was the National Wildfire Coordinating Group. Even though they use COMTs, COMLs, OX, and they don't use OX as much as they do the RADOs and on and on and on, that had not been named before this guidance had come out. And our committee, the Communications Unit Working Group, been working with the NIMS Integration Center for quite a while to get this done. Very happy that it came out. I think that's one of the proudest things, that my best accomplishment right there.
All right. Gene, did you want to come back on?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, my question is this. I heard you talk about how the internet may or not be down. I got that. But my question is, has anybody done an analysis on the effect of this event on the propagation of RF, basically VHW, UHW, which a lot of EmComm people use, even though there are HF frequencies too?
We talked about that at one of our planning meetings, by the way, and we think that the effect is going to be so short that it will be negligible. And so even if something does change, it's going to come back right away to go back to where it was just immediately before the eclipse. And so right now, and there's nothing we can do about it in any case. I know that there had been a couple of people look at that, and but I don't remember any scientific studies or anything like that. But the truth of the matter is, we're going to do the best we can do with what we've got, and go on about our business. Do and get up the next day. None of us are going to get killed because the lights went out, hopefully. And that's where we are with that, Gene.
All right, thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
All right, Tammy, you want to take it away?
Okay, so somebody just started mentioning it maybe. So I started listening to this and I'm like, okay, so there's an eclipse, and I'm sitting here Googling it because I'm like, shit, I haven't heard about this. And I'm like, okay, October. And then he's talking Arkansas, and I'm like, okay, different eclipse. I'm closer to the one that's going to be in October. If we're worried about something that's all the way in April, it sounds like we should be worried about October before or, you know, in addition, but if we're talking about October, or April, we need to be talking about October 1st. And frankly, where I am, I'm not near any of them anyway. I didn't even know there was going to be an eclipse.
Okay.
Yeah, your point's well taken, Tammy, but what I'm doing here is the eclipse just precipitated me to think about this, is what it boiled down to. I mean, these eclipses that we're having, yeah, the two of them in less than a year's time are big deals, and hopefully they don't cause any catastrophe. But it seems that it is a focal point that the ham radios can rally around to make themselves a viable asset for the authorities having jurisdiction. They're served agencies, and that's what I intend on.
Well, it looks like we may have lost JM there for a second. We'll go on here while we're, go ahead, Steve, take it away. Steve, you need to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Hear you now, just fine, go right ahead.
Yeah, thanks for your help. My concern is that it's
Audio.
easy to talk EmComm and maybe plan for it. But if you follow the saying that amateurs practice until they get it right, but professionals practice until they can't fail, my question is, how many people actually have sent real traffic in an exercise or a drill that would be what their served agencies would have them send? And it's nice to have 1,000 people checking to the net. We all can do that, but how many people will actually send realistic traffic? And that's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, Steve, thank you. Are you back, JM?
I am.
All right. Well, while you were gone, we took a vote and you're it.
Well, to speak to the last gentleman's statement there, you know, he's probably right. We are very much dependent on, we built such good, robust public safety systems that ham radio has become not as, what's the right word, not as necessary as it used to be. And I think one of the things that we can do to alleviate that kind of thing is change our mission just a little bit, and take on an additional task of situational awareness. And if we can do that kind of thing, I know our emergency managers here.
Well, James having some network problems tonight.
I think he just went away.
Yes, he just went away again. Scott, you want to come on?
Well, I was just going to comment to a lot of what he's saying. And then one of the nice, beautiful things is I have the opportunity to play both sides of the fence, because I do work for a served agency, and that we recognize the fact that amateur radio is a huge backbone to public safety communications. And especially looking at the 2017, 2018 wildfires, we lost over 40 some repeater sites in the state of California that house public safety repeaters, public safety communications. And we're trying to build up our amateur radio backside to fix a lot of those problems, because we don't have the capability. And a lot of our radio systems in California are using radio over IP and internet protocol. And once we lose those towers, we can't communicate effectively on the public safety side. And so amateur radio is really important to us from our agency standpoint, because we do medical.
Okay. Well, your point is well taken. We are all worried about the internet. The internet is improving all the time. We've got satellites now, so a lot of main places can don't have to rely upon local structure to keep the internet going and stuff like that. And that will only improve, I should hope. But we still have to be concerned about the internet. I see your hand up there, Steve. I'll call you in a second. My thoughts is, my thinking is, we need to be involved with all the disasters. Up here on Dodge City, Idaho, when they got something going on the East Coast, floods, hurricanes, you name it, whatever, or California, you name it. If we have a common place, and I'm not talking about radio so much right now, but it can turn into a radio thing where we are being able to monitor, if not participate in some fashion or another. We may have to do something to help a situation out, HF, VHF, whatever. Have a common place to keep everybody informed what's going on, so we're part of the picture, or get our mindset into it, and so forth. Okay, I'm getting more ahead.
Real quick, Dan, just to follow up to what you said. So David from California saw this. So we purchased a new toy. It's called a CRD, a compact racket deployable, and I put the link in the chat. It's a FirstNet deployable. It can be set for FirstNet, Verizon. It's fully configurable. You can put a repeater on it, and it allows you to create your own Wi-Fi and internet bubble because it has its own built-in satellite dish. Talk to your served agencies, show them this information, because the price tag is about $77,000, but show them to your served agencies and say, this is a valuable asset for EmComm, because it allows you, it's basically its own cell tower that you hook onto the back of your vehicle. And it's rather portable. And it's really impressive.
Well, Scott, this is exactly what I'm referring. I think JM is also. We know about this because you just now told us about it. If you hadn't just now told us about it, we wouldn't know about it. That's why we need to have this kind of information in a common place where we're all monitoring, working together, working on common problems and stuff like that. And I think this is the way that JM is driving this here. Okay, I held it off long enough. Steve, take it away.
Okay, can you hear me?
Hear you just fine, sir.
Okay, I wanted to respond to Scott. I don't know if Scott's aware of it, but his legislature in California has allocated over $6 million for an HF radio program. It has many several proprietary vendors. There are 72 grantees. All 58 counties were invited. There's also the Cal OES watch points. Cal ISO, the deals with the grid in the Northwest, is also moving forward in budgeting radio. TSA has allocated over 100 locations on a digital shares network, which utilizes a lot of amateur radio operators and others. Kentucky EMA just put in a WinLink RMS that's operated by volunteer resources. Florida National Guard has just added over $1 million worth of HF radio equipment. The state is trying to follow California's lead. Virginia National Guard has 9 locations that they're putting in EMP bags, along with adding 3 radio message servers for digital communication. So I just attended a FEMA RECWIC convention, so to speak, plenary, and that was a major conversation in Region 4, and it's permeating throughout the country. Likewise, it's the same in Region 5, Region 10, Region 8, all across the country. And FEMA itself has a push now to add amateur radio operators to their membership list through their nearby agencies. I mean, they're not just there for entertainment, but so that these volunteer resources will see firsthand how things actually work during peaceful times and during not so peaceful times during deployments. So, and I don't know whether this is all due to some major failures that have taken place with some of the common carriers in various modes, be they P25 trunking or simulcasting or whatever. But the LMR public safety is under a lot of scrutiny right now, especially when you're trying to pass complex messages. So this is an opportune time, and one of the main reasons why it's an opportune time is because propagation is such now that when these stations want to talk to each other, they not only have one frequency available in the spectrum, they've got a multitude of spectrum available that is ever increasing for any given distance due to the propagation that's due to Mother Nature. And that's going to be good for another 4 or 5 years now. So like everything else, people are taking advantage of it budget-wise. And that does bring in a need for more formal education for the amateur radio community and other volunteer resources, both in communication and other emergency support functions, so that they can integrate with these authorities having jurisdiction seamlessly. And JM, you want to amplify any of that or dispute any of that? Please go ahead.
Hey, Steve, absolutely. I'm very much aware of the radio stuff going on in California, because we work directly with TCOMs and OES on our communications side. And absolutely, and we're working with them to help develop a lot of this. And just a real quick,
what county are you? Who are we? I'm sorry.
so I work for the State of California Emergency Medical Services Authority.
Okay, all right.
State agency, and we work directly with Cal OES because they handle all of our radio programming and a lot of our stuff. And we also run a share station out of our radio room.
Right.
As well. And to get back to Brian, real quick. So CRD, the company makes, so when we bought our CRD, we bought it with a FirstNet and a Verizon cell system on it. So it's a dual system.
Yeah, I guess the difference is whether or not you want access to band 14 or not, right? So
yeah, we can have access to band 14 on the FirstNet side, and then the Verizon side is called their they have an equivalent, and we can access both systems simultaneously.
right.
Okay, JM, you want to pick it up?
Well, I'm ready to answer a question if you've got another one.
Okay, well, we've got some more hands up here. There's lots and lots of links going on in chat. I want to send this out afterwards, so everybody's got those links. This is a perfect opportunity to work together as hands to make us meaningful for across the board. In areas where not so meaningful, doing nothing, sitting on our thumbs, and in areas where they're just busier, whatever you want to call it, we need to be working together, at least for knowledge on the part. Okay, John, BSC, you want to take it again?
Yes, this is K7 BSB, John. A comment. I know the military has got a very significant interest in HF operations right now. We're working with Idaho Office of Emergency Management, some other folks to develop that sort of activity. But there's a lot of interest right now in making sure we can talk across the board all over the country on HF, in addition to as a backup to the internet and all the other systems that we have. And that's very important, because if things go wrong, we could be grid down very quickly, and we need to be able to react to that on a moment's notice. Thank you.
Well, thank you. JM?
I agree with him. He's 100% right. I'm aware of those guys. We've got a very active military group there, the 61st CST, that's at Camp Robinson, where the Arkansas Division of Emergency Management is, visits with me fairly often. They're talking about how things are coming around. They're realizing that by depending on some technology, they are throwing the baby out with the bathwater sometimes. And maybe what we need to do is I'm reminded of a song that says, "Go back to the basics of love."
Please don't sing. Well, the more I think about this, a lot of us, James is a good example, but there's a lot of people on this talk tonight that are key people on key functions in their state and county emergency management places. And the more we know what other places are doing, when we have conversations amongst these people, the doers in our state, in our locale that are trying to accomplish something, you have the opportunity then, because you have the knowledge, to say, hey, you know what's going on and what you call it? And if they didn't, most of them should, but they didn't, it's an opportunity to bring that conversation forward and keep things going. Okay, Jack.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, Dan, how are you doing? Whiskey Mike Zero Golf, but currently in New Hampshire, but I was the section manager of Colorado for many years, through a lot of disasters, as a matter of fact. And one of the things, I belong to the county areas out there. I'm currently in New Hampshire, and I'm the director of emergency communications for New England, just recently appointed for ARRL. But anyway, back to beat cares. Some talked about situational awareness earlier. And the best situational awareness tool that I've seen that the HAMs can provide is digital television. Now, I know we all have a cell phone, and we can all take pictures and we can all send them things. But I remember being in a flood in Colorado that was a major flood. It took out all the, it came down one of the sides of the mountains. It took out all the fiber optic cable and the internet. And there was no internet connection to Estes Park and communities in the Back Range. And the only communication that was left was ham radio. The police cars didn't have, their repeaters got wiped out in the flood. So the state police were without radio to either side of the mountains. And they could only go up and down the highways where the repeaters are on the east side, not the west side. So ham radio played an integral part. We were there for a week before people could get into some of these spots. The roads were washed out. But digital television, you can get on for about $1,000 worth of gear. You don't have to have millions of dollars. It's completely portable, very lightweight, and you can put it on your go peer-to-peer, or you can go through a repeater. And what we did is we actually were upstreaming it through Ustream, and it was being received, the flood pictures were being received at FEMA, the National Red Cross, and the White House on their request. Because once they saw that we could broadcast it, we were Ustreaming it all over the world, all over the country, actually. And it became a very, very viable tool where they could get resources that were necessary into the proper places at the proper time. A lot of times you don't get the right resources. You know, it's like I've seen disasters. You know, they send food to a place where there's, you know, where like that flood, everybody's electricity was out. All the freezers were loaded with venison and elk, and they have the giant barbecue going. So the last thing they needed was food, you know, but they didn't need clear water and they needed medicine. So situational awareness, that's the name of the game. We can provide it. We have very good tools to do it. And I think more organizations should do that. Thank you.
Yeah, we've talked about ATV here in Arkansas, and unfortunately, that's not been something that is years ago. We had several ATV repeaters here in the state, and they've kind of fallen by the wayside as other things took their place on the cool toy today kind of thing.
It's we've used it a couple of times in forest fire type things here in Idaho. It's very rare. It's just we happen to have a ham that had the just attach it to one of the Forest Service's helicopters that went away.
Mm-hmm.
And they were surprised at what the information were bringing to us. That's one of many tools that we can offer here. Pete, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I got a couple things. The mention was the military and beyond, and HF across the country and all that. Well, I'm a member of Air Force Mars, and so that's what we do. Mostly we really do it within our wing or region, but there are several exercises that are not Mars exercises. They're DoD.
I'm sorry, Pete, I hit a wrong button here and muted you. Please unmute yourself and go on.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, probably more. There's probably more Mars people, and in some cases it's Mars and Canadian, the seafarers, and so far maybe CAP, whatever. They're doing these all the time, and they're wanting us to participate and give more endpoints for the guys with their man packs or whatever. And in fact, this COMEX that's coming up is changed from sort of the typical thing to it sounds like a ham radio thing to me. Hey, here's the frequencies, make calls, and because they really want the military guys to play and learn it, which is what we've all been doing for however long we've been hams, right? So that's a really good point. Another thing, I live in Hamilton County in New York, which is the middle of the Adirondacks. The lowest, I guess it's not the lowest populated, but it's something like the lowest population density east of the Mississippi, and very mountainous, and line of sight is not that great. I'm actually working on trying to get an Aries Races program going here. The previous guy didn't do too well, and I'm saying, what can we do that the county can't do? Number one, we could talk from any point in the county to any other point in the county with HF NIVIS, or maybe we're going to try some 6 meters and stuff, and they can't do that. So that's a really good point. And then the other thing is, what can we do, or what can we add now that everybody's got more radio stuff than they used to? And the situational awareness is a really good point. We do it's not Aries, it's not any one group, it's just a bunch of people organized by a couple guys that do a really great job with all the ICS forms and documentation of the Black Fly Challenge. It's a mountain bike race through the Moose River Plains, which is remote. And there's not really much, there's no cell phones, and there's not much else. 1,000 people, 1,000 participants, they capped it this year. And we've been doing it for 10 years, and we have people every few miles, and the situational awareness has gone from 0 in 25 miles of the Moose River Plains to pretty good. So that is a real selling point, even if we're not handling official government communications, shall we say. That situational awareness component is really big. I think that's a selling point. And finally, I really turned into this because I saw the word AUXCOM. I went to the AUXCOM class last August, and I did the COMT in a month ago, and the state just had a 3-day communications meeting and exercise, they call it. So the functional exercise was 1 day, and there were a few of us that were there as AUXCOM trainees, and they said, we never used a ham radio in the whole thing. Okay, they said, we need you guys to come help out. We're setting up this incident communication center and dispatch and this, but we only have 3 people who know how to do that. You're it. So they sat the 4 of us. I will say they sat us down, but they didn't, because they were setting this thing up. And here's people that are maybe the incident communication center manager who's not a techie, and stuff didn't work. And guess who did a lot of the troubleshooting? It was us. And in the hot wash on the final day, the comments were made by the evaluators and the, state guys. A lot of them are hams anyway, and they know, but they said, well, this really shows you the value of the AUXCOM people. In other words, they're not just radio operators. They just got in there and they made stuff work. So that to me was, and that was actually during the class. That's kind of what was special. That was, emphasized that you're not coming as Aries or Races or radio operators. You might end up actually being the COMT because you're the only person that knows anything and there's nobody else there. So I think, really making, a point of the sort of the technical specialist stuff as opposed to the guy with the radio. That's where we sell ourselves.
That's a most excellent point, Pete. And that's one of the things that I'm all about, even though that I'm a member of the ARRL and the section emergency coordinator, and I have been the section manager here in Arkansas. It's my contention that the authorities having jurisdiction probably would be better served if we were club agnostic and not interested in what club politics are and what organization we belong to, because during that incident, we belong to the incident commander, and that incident commander's is his job is to tell us what it is that we've got to do and how we're going to perform it. And he doesn't want to see us wearing somebody else's hat. He wants us to be wearing his hat. And so I think that is something that we as operators, ham radio operators, have to absolutely get through our thick skulls. And I'm going to say that I was the worst one until I saw what the effect was, because there are people that just for whatever reason want to badmouth any of the organizations, whether it's whoever you want to talk about. But if a group of people that are doing work for an organization are doing what that organization wants, then there's no room for anybody to be happy about it. Unhappy about it. I'm sorry. Yep.
And with this upcoming event, we're going to be dealing with a lot of people in areas that don't normally see amateur radio operators or radio operators at all, because it's the little town that has a two-person police department and a two-person fire department and a population of 15, and all of a sudden they have 500 people and they need help. And we need to be able to go and work with these people and give them what they need and help them do their jobs. And we need to put our egos away and help them. And that's going to be the biggest challenge, is working with these kind of people who aren't used to working with volunteers like us.
That's right, Barry. One of the things that the reason I wanted to do this here on this Zoom call is that not everybody wants to use Facebook. There's a fairly large Facebook group of AUXCOM people right now. I think I looked today, it was just almost 1,200 people, which is a pretty fair number of individuals. And not every AUXCOM person is in that group, by the way. But this group where we're talking together and we're not bound by Facebook rules or the rules of the administrator or anything like that. The only person that we've got to not run afoul of is Dan, because he can shut our water off. But that's my point exactly. A lot of people aren't going to use Facebook, and this is a good way for us to be able to do things in a more immediate fashion and to know that we're heard when we've got a problem or when we can solve somebody's problem, rather than depending on the algorithm that maybe you see that post and maybe you don't. We're guaranteed this. I think that once a month is going to be a pretty good frequency here for this type of program. And I want to hear from you guys. Is this something that you'd like to see continue? Is this kind of thing that we're doing tonight? Is it so?
Oh,
I like it.
yeah.
I think it's good.
But
You got to remember, we're also, this will be on YouTube and other media henceforth.
yes, it will.
Sounds like a great idea to me here in Colleen.
We need to come together in this stuff. I don't care what hat you got on or how many different organizations that you're working with or for. We need to work together. We all have the common interest in mind here. John, you've been waiting forever over there in Billings, Montana. You want to take it away?
Thank you very much for the time. This comes very timely for us here in Billings. Our club meeting was last Monday night, and the topic of communicating without anything else functioning came up in an emergency situation, and a few of us were asked to look into how we are going to do that. The links that you've provided over here in the chat head us towards the right direction, but right now, if we had to go out on a emergency call out, say something came through here and wiped everything out, which may or may not happen, who knows? That's why we do this. And knowledge of how to use some of it and maybe not all of it. So this is very timely for us, and I'm looking forward to seeing what other ideas come across the line. But in the coming days, we're trying to put together something so we can show up at an emergency situation and actually not be part of the problem. And so some of these things cost a whole lot of money that I've seen here on these links, which would be great to have. And you'll provide our own cell tower and stuff like that. But we need to come up with a way. I've heard a couple of people say, yeah, there's different monies out there for these types of things at different states and stuff, or federally. If someone has an idea how to get a hold of some of that federal funds for us, that would be a wonderful idea. And lines of communication can be put together real quick. I'll give you my email address if I need to, or phone number or whatever. So if that's something you could help us out with, I'd really appreciate it. This group is just exactly what I needed at this particular time. So with that, I'll shut my mouth and let y'all respond to that. Thank you very much. This is John here in Billings, Montana.
John, put your stuff into chat there so we can capture that information from you. Go ahead, JM.
John in Billings, I think I'm glad we were able to do you some good here tonight. I hope that in the future we can continue to help you. I think you guys got like 4,000 feet of snow or something up there this year, and there's people that hadn't been seen for I don't know how long, kind of thing. And I believe that if that's not the case, you're on fire. So I guess that there's things that happen all over the United States that where ham radio can be of use, and that's what I want to proliferate through the entire the whole world. Dan, I mean, why not?
This is an opportunity we all need. We work locally, we work statewide, we work federally, but we have a hard time working together. And this, and what JM is proposing here, I strongly support. I hope everybody will join that reflector that is in chat. Barry, if you'll put it out there again, I appreciate that. And I'm warning you right now, this is going to go over a little bit, but I think it's conversations that are needed. John, you're back on VSV.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm just looking at our own scenario up here. You know, we're a kind of a blue sky state here in the north end of Idaho. We don't have a lot of the issues they have in Oklahoma, Nebraska, and a lot of other places where whole chunks of the state can disappear in an evening. But I was looking at it in terms of if we're going to work with our own people one of the things we need to make sure we as ham radio operators are doing is we need to be patient, we need to be considerate and so forth, because the folks we're working with probably don't do this sort of thing, like say set up an EOC very often themselves, and we need to make sure that we're kind of playing the game with those folks, because they're stressed out. We're going to be stressed out. Everybody else is going to be stressed out. So let's just smile, go along with the program, and do the best we can to help each other. That's all I got.
I'd like to say amen to that. And the trick that I've learned when something not real cool is going on is to take the trash can and go empty it.
Yes. You don't have to be just holding a microphone in your hand or a key or a keyboard. If you can do other things while things are going on around you, you need to do that. You need to be of a value to the situation at hand. Okay, let's pick up another one here. Dan, you're on, sir. Gene, you got your TV on again.
I do.
It's got something coming through.
Okay.
It's just me.
Reading the comments, there have been multiple references to the recent March FEMA release. I think it's called ICT, Incident Communications Technology. And I think Oxcom has presaged that right from the beginning, with its focus on non-denominational use of the amateur radio service for local emergency communications. So I'd like to see that. And it's how do I say it? That 24-page paper that was referred to both in previous comments and 3 or 4 of the written chat comments. If we'd all read that before the next meeting, I think would impose a lot of structure that we've all been scratching at from different directions. Amateur radio is not going to solve any problems. Amateur radio in conjunction with all the technology that many amateur radio service licensees are into, now that's a pretty hefty amount of problem solving. And when you make that up with agencies that recognize that and want to work with them, you've leveraged a massive amount of ubiquitously dispersed technical capability. So kind of seems to me that doing this monthly probably is a good idea. And I'd like to see everyone read that 24-page paper. First of all, as a retired Fed bureaucrat, I was alarmed at how well written that 24 pages was. I mean, it was just right down to the middle about what's going on in communications. So those are my thoughts for the day.
Can you put a reference to that in chat?
There's 3 or 4 references to it. Look down the chat, anything that has ICT in it. It's the March 2023. Well, here, I actually just closed it. I mean, it'd be a redundant reference.
Okay, that's fine.
It's every one of the URLs in the chat that has the 3 initial FEMA and then ICT in it is a link back to that. And it's a darn good, easy read that brings together all the corners of our worlds in terms of communications. And it's got to be more than just non-denominational clubs or, non-alignment with any clubs. You have to be focusing on the final issue, which is communicating the information where it needs to go, when it needs to go with 100% accuracy. So, and this was most of my career. And it was rewarding and taxing all at the same time. So nothing comes easy, but when you work with everybody around you and you all share your bits of skill, wonderful things come out of it.
JM?
I agree with everything that he said. And if we take that as homework, I think that's probably a pretty good idea. It does read very easily. We worked a pretty good little bit with the NIC, the NIMS Integration Center on the language that we did. And I can tell you guys that some of the spots that are named in there do not have classes yet. There's no curriculum for them, but they're working on it. CISA, the Critical Infrastructure Security Agency, is in charge of doing those classes, and that's who does the COML, COMT, RADO. They'll be doing RADO. They'll be doing something that my next class will be COMC, which is the communications coordinator. He's the guy that actually passes the frequencies and talk groups out to the COMLs, for instance. So that's that's the contribution that we got from the National Wildfire Coordinating Group. Back to you, Dan.
All righty. Well, I appreciate this. Has been a good talk. I think we're on the right track. Remember, folks, this the third Thursday every month, we're going to try to duplicate this in between. If you want to get on that group's IO, and so we can chat about this in between, it's going to help everybody out and get some conversations going. Okay, Victor, you want to go ahead?
Good evening, and thank you very much. The theme I've noticed tonight is training and multiple capabilities. When I was a kid, I was playing football. I practiced on the offense. In games, I never played offense. I was on defense, but I started to understand what the offense was doing on the other side. I've had my ticket now for about 6 years. Being exposed to leadership roles and net control roles has been critical. I don't think I'm limited. I don't drive, so I'm limited. And being exposed to leading and being net control of the fire control operator in our last drill, I was running the net. Because of my limited equipment, I don't expect to be the one at the fire operations center. I expect to be transferred out. But I see a weakness in our own organization is that everyone is not getting that opportunity to be that fire operations center controller. That's going to be critical. And when you talk about EmComm and the Eclipse, you're going to need everybody to be aware of what the net control operator has to do, having done it themselves, and understanding that. So no matter being able to step in and role if they need to. I think that's real critical is that broader exposure to training and leadership roles for everyone, not just, oh, well, we want you to be doing this. We want you to be doing this. Spread the training around so that everybody gets to understand all 17 views, all 360 degrees of the program. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that. One of the things that we're doing for you guys that can't get out and around and what have you is that we're going to be encouraging people for their local 2-meter and 440 repeaters to have somebody on there 24 hours. That if somebody gets in trouble, they get to have somebody to talk to. And maybe give some assistance, like a talk-in operator at a ham fest. By the way, welcome them to the area. If they need an ambulance, we'll see about getting them one. If they need some diapers, we'll see if we've got some resources for that. So your point is very well taken. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, and I'm just, as you were doing that, I was thinking what we need to do is find a way of putting a sign like that in the front of that house or the car. It's in the event or whatever, amateur radio operator, communications, whatever. So people will know that's where they need to go if they need for whatever they need to be involved there somehow.
So we've thought about that, Dan, and one of the things we do is the road signs, the programmable highway signs. That's one of the things that we're going to have that thing say. It rotates a message. One of the things that we're going to do is local repeater is 146.94 PL of 114.8, available 24/7. So I think that's one thing we can do for sure.
Okay, well, good enough. Before,
Dan, I gotta add something real quick, please.
okay, make it fast.
Don't allow people to sidestep it. Assign them the role in advance and say, you're doing this next week. Not, oh, well, I'm not doing that. Don't let them sidestep, push them into the role and make them do it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, before we go to the next one here, I want to, again, is there anybody not in favor of what JM is trying to do on the national level? Put in chat or raise your hand, talk about it. But is there anybody, I think we got a good thing going here. We need to make it grow out. But if somebody sees something different, we need to know about it. So give us your views.
We also may want to ask invited guests who deploy volunteer resources to come in and give another perspective. Like we have in the past, only narrow it down to specific OXCOM deployment.
Okay.
Or OXCOM not deployment, I'm sorry, OXCOM volunteer use.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
All right. Everett, do you want to pick her up?
Yes, sir, Dan. So, after my first go on here, when I commented earlier, I dropped the actual PDF into the chat. So if anyone wants to pull it, they can. From the perspective of I work for emergency management here in Maui, in Hawaii here. I'm the communication specialist. So from a emergency management perspective, my administrator is very supportive of amateur radio. We're unique here in Hawaii, in Maui County, that we have 3 separate islands within our county. So we rely on having good communications, and we've deployed out UHF, VHF equipment as well as HF to each of those areas, so that we can communicate back to the EOC here. He's very well aware of the importance of amateur radio. Yes, OXCOM is, as a few people have said in the chat, that OXCOM is a little bit more higher level training. In reality, amateur radio is just a small piece of that OXCOM area, but it is a great thing to actually have, even with having Aries, because I'm one of the emergency coordinators here also in Maui. So yeah, you have to have the entry into that, and then also have basically just keep the interest going and expose the operators to different things, going from EmComm and Aries to OXCOM and even further. So I think it's just exposure, and bringing the different things, and just explaining to people and operators what's out there. Not everyone's going to have that same interest to gain those knowledge, gain the advanced knowledge, but at the same token, they make the decision on doing that themselves as well. You can't really force them to do it, but if people see the relevance and the use, then it's well worth it to keep every level.
You know, you kind of touched on something there, and David in Los Angeles just asked a question in chat, very same thing. I think one of the things that we can do here is that there are people not directly involved in EmComm, but when they see the cool kids doing stuff that they're not getting to do, they may say, well, what have I got to do to help in that? And that may be the draw. I don't think that we are going to be able to educate people that don't want to be educated, but if they want to be educated, that's where we can make a difference.
I think everybody pretty well agrees there.
I got one last comment here.
Oh, no.
Okay, one of the things that's important to understand is that it's not all about handling messages or communicating during a deployment. There are a zillion opportunities available if we just open them up, all the way from keeping an agency's cash radio batteries up to date, all the way to keeping diesel fuel in their tower trailer generator, and command vehicles. There are a lot of things that we can do to make ourselves useful that don't have anything to do with a radio knob. And I don't know whether a lot of us think about that when we go to OXCOM or a COML class or an ICS 300 class, or take online courses. That's a knock on the door. But an agency that's serious will do two things. One, they'll want to train you on their systems and how they operate, and how they deviate from maybe what you might expect. And when you get those kind of opportunities, they're serious. Otherwise, you know, and it takes a lot of trust and a lot of time to develop those relationships. But that's the key word there, in my opinion, relationship. And if we develop those relationships, for example, if you take OXCOM, it's hams talking to hams. You could take a course similar to that called COML, Communication Leadership Course, and you're working with and team building with the actual people you may be working with in real life. And there's a difference. So both of them are valuable. Both of them have their own purposes, and both of them should be considered. And I don't know whether JM's got a comment about that or not, but my 2 cents worth.
No, I agree with you, Steve. The idea is that relationships are where everything. If they don't trust you, they're not going to let you come in, and if they don't trust you, they're not going to send you anyplace. And so that's the very first thing we've got to do is we have to build a product that that our consumer wants to buy. And if we're putting something real cool together, but nobody likes it or nobody sees a use for it, all we're doing is just talking to ourselves. And I think that if we find out from our AHJs what it is that we can do for them, no matter what it is, then that'll get our foot in the door, and then that'll allow us to expand our capabilities with them. And I think that's what we've got to do if we want to do that. I mean, some people don't care. I do, and so that's why I'm working on this.
Okay, we got 3 hands up and we're going through some time. I don't want to miss anybody, but at the same time, let's try and make it short here. Pete, go ahead.
Yeah, really interesting. When I went to the COMT, pretty much it was a very small class. It was really great because there wasn't a ton of people there, but pretty much all the people that were, the presenters, the instructors, I think they were all hams, but they all said to the people that were taking this course who were not, and maybe not even all that technical in some cases, they were going because their agency said, you got to go do this. They all said, if you don't have your ham license, get it, because I guarantee you're going to learn something you didn't know. And the point being that, some guys there, maybe girls there were already in the radio business, so to speak, but others and maybe they were hams and they tinkered with the stuff, but others weren't. And that, again, that's where we as not the people who, well, I got an HT and I got a Bofang and a license, so why do I need this? Why do I need to do Aries level, whatever, or whatever? They're going to miss out. But those of us who are, real, how shall I say, real hams, in a way, we know how to troubleshoot stuff and fix stuff and read directions and read technical stuff. And that's that was the point that they were making, is get your ham license, then you can go tinker around with stuff that you really can't do. You know, you're not going to take apart the $10,000 public service radio, right? And so there is that recognition that I saw very much from the, you know, the professionals. And if we, you know, get people who don't have that recognition to see it, that's where we're, you know, we're the MacGyvers, right? And if they realize that, because, you know, Murphy's Law always shows up and we're the guys that can fix that, that's where we get in, I think.
All right. As you were speaking, Pete, I was looking over at my screen here, getting lots of people right now that's joining into the Groups IO for, it's called EmComm Groups IO, but my screen is filling up with notices that these people are joining in. So thank you very much. We're going to make it worth your while. Go back to you there, JM.
I agree with him. It's a challenge. They're in the chat. They're talking about PTBs. I just went through the Oxcom Train the Trainer class and have of course I've been teaching ICS 300 and 400 and COML as well as other emergency management classes for some time. Adding the Oxcom class to us has been a boon for us here, and I think that that's one of the things that will be coming on. I think that let's see, if you're looking for a class, you're going to have to ask your emergency manager to see about getting one. The federal government has a program called ICTAP, and I can't think what it's called or what that equates to, Dan, but ICTAP has a program where they can furnish to the state instructors, and it doesn't cost the state anything to put that class on, but you've got to meet some requirements. The state does for that to take place. I don't know, guys. Is there anybody else that's got a question we can answer real quick?
We got two more.
Got to be.
Go ahead, Tom.
Instead of thinking of yourself passing the message, sometimes it's worthwhile to look and see how you can put a person in touch with who they need to talk to. Don't expect their traffic to cross your decks. Give them a means to talk. We set up a bunch of that high-speed ham net stuff around with junk, really, you know, old routers and stuff, around the site of a building explosion. And when I handed the county executive a voice over IP portable telephone so that he could actually talk to his office, because the building where the sheltering was being done was down in a river bottom and he couldn't even get his phone to work down there. And suddenly he can talk to folks. I swear the man was going to kiss me on the mouth. So think about, yes, well, there is that, jam, but think about, you know, how can you help these people the way they most want to be helped instead of in the mold you're in? Thanks.
That's well taken. David, do you want to pick it up as the last one for questions here?
Yeah, and I'll try to be brief. The whole idea, the mantra that we need to be moving forward with is not how do we get amateur radio operators to support the community, because we want to do that. Is what we need to do is figure out how to partner with the community, the served agencies, to provide the service. And that's what I've heard here a lot tonight. We're not just amateur radio operators, we're volunteer communicators, and we'll do what needs to be done, just like the last speaker said. If we can hand you a phone and we can make it work because we have the services and the skill and the capability to be the MacGyvers in the community, that's where the value is. And we need to step away from the when all else fails mentality, because that turns off the professionals and the first responders. We can know that we can do it when all else fails, but we need to stop saying it because it's an egotistical thing. It doesn't help move our cause forward. Aries isn't perfect, but I serve Aries and I serve it proudly. What we need to do is figure out how do we partner with the first responders and our community leaders so that we can provide the service when they ask us to step up, and to do it in a way that we show up without an ego, without a badge, without a whatever, to provide the value to the community. That's what's going to help us drive, more service, more value to, your neighbor, your city, your state. It's really a mindset change that we need to do. And I think the direction of what we talked about today, we should keep talking about this, because that's the direction that I saw JM talk about, and that's the way we're going, and that's what's going to make us successful. And I'll cut it short because I know we're getting late, but thank you for giving me the platform, and thank you all for being here.
Well, thank you very much, David, for being here and your comments. Paul, you want to pick it up and we'll try to wrap it up? Paul?
Yeah, I'm here. I was just saying, I just retired from the hospital where I do ham radio, and I was thinking the last 2.5 years with COVID has shown me that either the ham radio guys or maybe the emergency preparedness committee, we're going to have to turn those laptops in the incident command center on about once a month, just to make sure everything gets updated properly, which will really help. And I'm thinking, for every ham you've got sitting in an EOC, we probably need a couple hundred certs out there, or community members. We should offer to teach them simple radio communication with their FRS or their GMRS, because they're the ones that are going to feed us the info. I can't send a message to the city unless I've got people feeding us info in. Otherwise, we're in a box and we don't know what's going on. Thanks.
Right, thank you very much. Go ahead, pick it up, JM.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. That we're right now, Oxcom ignores anybody except for amateur radio operators. That's the federal rule. And here in Arkansas, we've told them that that's not what the game that we're playing. We're just bringing everybody. Sounds like he's loading his dishwasher there. I don't know. Anyway, that we're including everybody that we can think of that might give us some information, and we'll have to figure out a way to make sure it's kind of legitimate before we act on it. But that's what we're looking for, is actionable situational awareness.
All right. Are there any more comments out there?
Dan, this is Victor.
Hiya, Victor.
You talk about this meeting going over and long. When you continue with these roundtable discussions like this, I would think I would plan for 90 minutes. Thank you. Good luck. These are great.
Well, we tried to include everybody. This has been good. We didn't know how well we go over. It's gone over very well. JM's got a great idea. I think we're going to go with it. If it's, we need to have these things. We need to work together and be on the same page. And I don't care what hat you're wearing. Okay. Are you looking at chat there to make sure we're not missing anything in there, JM?
Yeah, I don't see anything that's just comments.
Okay, I will send something here shortly to everybody. It will include what's in chat, so you get all the links and all that stuff in here. It's been very good. We will be doing this more. And the more people we get involved, especially those that's in the position, whether you're an EC, SEM, or whatever heck hat you're wearing, if you're involved with disaster communications, we want your involvement with this. Okay, wrap her up there, JM.
I want to thank everybody for your kind attention, and I'm glad that what I've thought of here, and I don't think I'm the first one to think of it, but I'm maybe the loudest one to think about it. So I'm hoping that we can grow this into something that's an asset for ourselves and for our served agencies. And that's what I've got. I don't know where we're going from here, but we're going to go somewhere, Dan, and I'm hoping that where it goes is positive. So back to you, and good night, everybody.